Today we're going to deal with one of the most quoted verses in the Bible, John 3:16. Apology.
It's almost ironic that you're bringing up this verse when I just posted a video on this verse last night. So, once again, y'all are showing you don't know what you're talking about. Let's just start with the beginning. Isaiah 45:17, Olam. Cosmos and Olam are not two languages meaning the same thing. Olam in Greek is aion, not cosmos. So, that's simply factually incorrect. Now, in Isaiah 45:17, the King James Version renders it with an old liturgical expression. This is an expression that was used within the church to refer poetically to eternity. So, for example, in old hymnals, you'll see references to world without end. This is not a way of saying Israel is a world that doesn't end. It's just an old way of saying eternal, and you guys are getting hung up on this old English expression. So that's the first issue. It just means eternal, everlasting in Isaiah 45:17, which is how most other Bibles who aren't trying to be poetic use the term. Now, Wisdom of Solomon 18:24 is brought up, but when we look at how the ancients actually understood this, well, it doesn't agree with you guys at all. So let's look at a couple of ancient Jewish sources, that is, Israelites who lived around the time of Jesus, how they described this. This first example is Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, chapter 3, 184. It says, "Now the vestment of the high priest being made of linen signified the earth. The blue denoted the sky, being that like lightning in its pomegranates, and the noise of the bells resembled thunder. And for the ephod, it showed that God had made the universe of 4 elements. And as for the gold interwoven, I supposed it raised to the splendor by which all things are enlightened." Now here we have Philo of Alexandria. He lived just a little bit before Josephus, overlapping somewhat, I guess. But notice references here. "So that it may seem to be a copy and representation of the world." It goes on, "being an emblem of the air," it said. And then it says, "from the regions about the moon to the lowest places of the earth." And then it talks about the breastplate being a symbol of heaven. So what we see is when its whole world is used in Wisdom of Solomon 18:24. If we compare it to these ancient sources and what they're saying, these are Israelites who are writing these things. It doesn't mean Israel. It's actually being used, cosmos is being used in reference to the created universe, which is absolutely one of the meanings. Now, the question comes up, what does the Greek cosmos in John 3:16 mean? So what they try to do is they try to take an old Anglo-Israelism, white supremacist argument and borrow that. So they're actually advocating white supremacist ideology here, which is ironic. But let's go into the Greek lexicons and see what cosmos means in John 3:16 specifically, because that's the question. Not what can it mean in other contexts, like order and arrangement, which it's only used one time that way in all of the New Testament. By the time the New Testament, the first century, it's being used in a very clearly defined way. But let's just see what it actually means here, because they want to make up a meaning regarding arrangement and say, oh, Israel's an arrangement. No, that's not what that means. So let's find out. So this is Bauer's lexicon, and so we'll notice this is definition 6, and it says humanity in general, the world. And as we'll keep reading in this definition, this is where John 3:16 falls. And so we continue. Of all humanity, that's John 3:16. Here's Thayer's Greek lexicon. The inhabitants of the world, particularly the inhabitants of the earth. Man, the human race. This is an analytical lexicon of the Greek New Testament, and it does not provide a specific reference for John 3:16. But I think it's important to point out that adornment or adorning or arrangement, this is used in 1 Peter 3:3. But really, that's it in the New Testament. Everything else in the New Testament refers to mankind and creation or the universe. It is not a reference to Israel. So this is absolutely baseless. One West needs to go back to the drawing board on this one. In fact, there's no point because there's no way around it. The text says what it says. It means what it means. And all they can do is sit there in denial and try to bang their head against a wall, trying to come up with another solution. But the Bible's clear. Salvation is for whosoever, that is, all who believe.